Hello children, I'd like to say welcome to our collective worship today, and as we're waiting to get started I'm going to share my screen with you, and as I'm doing that I'd like to start by saying this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Now today children, we're still thinking about the jigsaw theme that we talked about on Monday, which is thinking about how to keep yourself and others safe. Now, today's collective worship is thinking about looking after other people's well-being. And we're going to be thinking about this phrase, which is be quick to praise and slow to criticise. So for our younger children, you might need to think about that, which is, let's think about how we can say well done, but also think it's not great to tell people things in a negative way that aren't very nice, okay? So as we're looking at the candle, and we're thinking about what our collective worship is all about today, I want you just to think about the last time that you gave somebody a compliment. When did you say something nice about somebody? Have a little think to yourself about when that was. That might have been, you look nice today, or I like the way you've done your writing, or I like the picture that you've drawn, or it might be, oh, that was a really nice game. Thank you for playing with me. Think about when you last said something that made somebody feel really good about themselves. Sometimes praising somebody is not always something we find easy to do, and yet it is something that is very important. So let's think about that, and let's think about the importance of saying well done, that's really good. And let's think about how we can actually praise somebody. Okay, so while we're thinking about that, I'm going to introduce the title of the story from the Bible that we're going to share today, which is called John the Baptist. Now, some of you will know about John the Baptist, but some of you might not. So I'm going to start by explaining, as you can see from the picture, that John was a very hairy man. You can see by his long hair. His clothes were very itchy clothes. They were made out of camel hair. And he used to wear a belt. It was a level belt that went all the way around his waist. And he survived by munching on locust and wild honey. You can see the picture of the locust in his hand and also the wild honey that he's found. Now, John had been set a task by God to tell everybody that someone special was coming to visit. The person was to be God's chosen messenger, coming to tell us how to live in God's way. Now, John took this job very seriously, but perhaps a little too seriously. He told people off, telling them that almost everything they were doing was wrong in God's eyes. Not only did he shout at the crowds, but one by one, he took groups of people aside and told them what they should actually do. Stop taking too much money. Be honest and be kind, he told the tax collectors. Stop making people give you their money, he told the soldiers. If you have 2 coats, give one to someone who needs it when it's cold, he said. Share your food with others, he warned them. This is what God commands you to do, And if you really want to be part of God's family and make him proud of who you are, you'll need to sort yourself out. John led the people to the riverbank and said, "Go into the river and I will baptize you. This will show God that you are serious about changing the way you live and treat other people." He took them one by one and baptized them. Now I'm going to stop there, and I'd like the grown-ups in the room to talk to you about, what does baptizing someone actually mean? Can you tell the grown-ups in your class what that actually means, please? So hopefully you've had a chance to talk about that and to talk about the significance of why John was called John the Baptist. Now, the problem with John was not the things he said to the people, but the aggressive manner in which he said them. He always seemed to be telling people off rather than encouraging them. So rather than praising them and saying, "Well done," he got very cross and shouted and told them what they had to do. And that's not a nice way to talk to people. So the story continues. Not long after all those people had been baptized, Jesus appeared at the riverside. "I want you to baptize me," Jesus said. But instead of being delighted to have been asked to perform this very special ceremony, John was very quick to start arguing with Jesus. And he said, "But I'm not good enough. How could I possibly baptize you? You are the one who should be baptizing me. I'm not good enough even to carry your sandals." John just didn't feel he was good enough. Jesus replied, "But God has chosen you, John. He knows you are good enough. He just needs you to realize it for yourself." John was very surprised by this. Jesus didn't shout at John. He didn't tell him off. He didn't even tell him what he had done wrong. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Jesus was full of praise and encouragement. He was good enough. He was the right person to do the job. This made John feel very uncomfortable being asked to baptize Jesus, but reluctantly, he said, "If that's what God wants, then I will baptize you." So John took Jesus into the River Jordan and baptized him, just as the others had been baptized. When Jesus came out of the water, he saw heaven opening, and the Spirit came down like a dove. Then God's voice came from heaven and said to Jesus, "Well done, John. I am very proud of you and what you will achieve." Now, it's not very often that Jesus tells people off. In an encouraging way, Jesus asks people to look after themselves and think about all the really good things they can do. He points out all the different things that they can achieve and what they can be. Now, we've just heard the story about John the Baptist and how he was asked to baptize Jesus. I want you to start thinking about yourself again now. And how do we react if somebody criticizes us or even praises us? How do you feel if somebody keeps saying, "That's not good enough. That's not very, very good. You could have done that better"? How does that make you feel? You might also like to think, How does it make you feel when somebody says, "Well done, that's amazing, that's brilliant. You've put super effort into that. Your writing's brilliant. Your drawing is fantastic. You've been brilliant in PE today." How does that make you feel? Just have a quiet think to yourself. Sometimes when people keep criticizing us, it stops us from trying to do our very best. It can make us feel disappointed with ourselves and maybe even useless. And we don't want anyone to feel like that. If we use praise, however, we can really make people feel good about themselves. It will even encourage people to try harder. Hopefully, it will make us all feel really good about ourselves. Now, what I'd like to do, sometimes Mrs. Robertson puts the prayer up on the screen for you to read. What I'd like you to do now is to close your eyes or put your hands together, whatever you'd like to do. I'm going to share a prayer with you now. Dear Lord, so often we can be quick to criticize people for the things they say or do. Sometimes we can be too slow to praise them. We often feel strange or embarrassed about praising all the good things that people do. So let's help us to encourage others so that they can feel proud about the progress they made or make and feel really good about the things that they achieve. Let us try to be a little bit more like Jesus in the way we treat people so that they will be able to say or think, "It's good to be me." Amen. Now, I hope, children, that's given you something to think about. It is good to be me. We are thinking about how we treat others, thinking about how, when we speak to one another, we make each other feel. So I'd like you to think really carefully about some of the things I've said today in our collective worship. And when you go out in the playground or at lunch, even in the classroom, think about how you can make other people feel really, really good about themselves. So thank you for listening. I'm going to finish our collective worship by saying, "This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us all rejoice and be glad in it." Now, I hope you all go and think about how you're going to make somebody feel really good about themselves. Thank you for listening, children. See you all soon. Bye.